Okay, so good evening, folks, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Armine Matensian. I am the second vice president of NAMI Tri-Valley. It is my privilege and honor this year to run our general meetings. What that means is we reach out to the community and bring in guest speakers, topics that'll help everyone. So our board, most board members are here, not all, I guess, but it's open to public. We're here to provide services. We're predominantly support group for families. We have a lot of programs going on. I think most of you are familiar. If not, I'll be more than happy to follow up, stay afterwards, ask a question, be happy to work with you. So today is May 3rd, and May is really the mental health month. We're all involved with our loved ones. We live with the mental illness around us every month, but for the world, this is May, and we decided to dedicate May to taking care of ourselves, okay? It's the self-care time. And now the last 3 years of COVID hovering in a background has not been helping any one of us. So today we're honored to bring this topic with someone who really knows the subject matter and not a stranger to NAMI Tri-Valley. So Lynn Gardner has been our supporter for years and years and years, and he's been coming to our meetings as a guest for as long as I've been here, and I've been with NAMI Tri-Valley about 8 years. Now, this year she did retire, but she agreed to come back, and we're just excited. She's got more energy, and she'll bring the topics to us. So Lynn Gardner is the executive director of Genesis Community Development Corporation and retired program for programs managing Horizon Family Counseling. That's where we used to get her services before. And she brings a wealth of knowledge, and she earned an MBA from University of Washington and master's degree in counseling from California State University, Hayward, with an emphasis in marriage and family therapy. So I think we're all here excited to hear what she has to say about self-care. I will be working with her on this. I will share the presentation, and then we even have some clips for you. So this is going to be very exciting. You ask your questions as needed. You can raise your hands. We prefer to go all the way at the end, but if you think you need to have a question, raise your hand, and there's a little symbol, or at the end, we'll ask you to speak up. It's not a big group, so it'll be easier to have a conversation. So without the further ado, I'm going to turn the stage here to Lynn Gardner and start sharing my screen.
Thank you so much, Armine. I'm so excited to see you guys. I do miss you all from my normal capacity, but I retired about 7 months ago from the city, and I've seen too much court TV is what I can tell you. I just had to give it up and go and do another management position as executive director for Genesis Community Development Corp. So we're really excited. I'm personally excited about this topic. I've been doing it for about 2.5 years because once COVID started, that became a necessity. And I am a true believer in self-care, and I'll give you some examples of the way that I do it. So we're going to go to the next slide. So we're going to talk about what some of these goals are for today. And if you click on the first one, you just click, it'll come up.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't realize. Okay. I got it.
Okay. So we're going to understand the importance of self-care and mindfulness in terms of COVID. And I know that it is that everybody's excited and things seem to be getting back into shape. The reality is there's another side of COVID. There's COVID, the long haul COVID symptoms, there's additional variants, et cetera. So we can't just kind of say, oh, we're back to normal, because I don't think we will be for quite some time. So that again is why we have got to focus our efforts on doing self-care for us. We'll click on the next one. So I also want to validate feelings and responses, because I know a lot of times people feel like, oh my God, I shouldn't feel this way. Nothing's happened to me, so I should be okay, and all that sort of stuff. And the reality is we have all suffered through this time period, and we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. We'll click the next. I'm going to talk to you about something called name it to tame it. We cannot heal ourselves. We cannot address situations unless we know what they are and what feelings come up for us in terms of the situation. So we're going to go through a feelings wheel. Some of this stuff you're going to get after as handouts, so you'll be able to see in much more detail what I'm talking about. But it's really important to be able to not just say, well, I'm sad or I'm happy, and those kind of basic things. You want to do something that's a little bit more specific. Okay, and I'll show you that. Then we're going to explore self-care and resiliency, because that's very important. Resiliency is what we've all been doing, but it is also something that we need to concern ourselves with. And then the last one, I think, is share ideas and experiences. So I'm happy to hear that Colin will share his experiences with the group. And I hope, because it is such a small group, that we can all share. Okay, so that's what the goals are for today. What I want to do is make this sort of more of a two-way discussion. So we'll go to the next slide. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm just talking at you for an hour or an hour and 15 minutes. I want this to be back and forth. So if you could, in the chat, put either A through F, how often do you practice self-care? I know for me, since I've been doing the presentation and stuff, it's like at least every other day, sometimes more. Daily, I like that, Lois. Yes. Not enough? I understand. And we don't, if we're not doing it daily, don't beat ourselves up with it. Thanks, Colin. Because there's always a chance to change. There's always a chance to increase. And that's what I want you to consider. So now we'll go to the next slide. And that's going to ask you, what type of self-care strategies do you use most often? I know for me, I'm starting to practice deep breathing. And so I'm trying to get into doing that a few times a day. And I've noticed it's made a big difference for me when I'm really stressed. And even when I had some medical appointments, right? And of course, going to the doctor, my God, you're all hyped up and you're freaked out. And so now I do the deep breathing. I'm able to regulate my blood pressure and that sort of stuff. And it's just been wonderful to be able to do that. Next, does anybody else have any inputs in terms of what they've done? Running and yoga, awesome. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about what kind of experiences have you had that made the greatest impact on you over the last 2 years. And those could be a number of things. It could be, unfortunately, loss of a loved one. It could be loss of freedom, because we were all stuck in the house for, basically 2 years. We saw so much going on in terms of with the media, whether it was the George Floyd murder, fires and national disasters. You remember when the skies were red and orange because of the fires that we went through? Yes. And we couldn't breathe. We had to have masks before we had to have masks, right? In terms of that. And now with all the things going on, the tornadoes, the hurricanes, the war in Ukraine, it's just going crazy. And of course, that has an impact on us all. Every single person does that in a different way. Some people try to, I'm okay. it was interesting. My pastor on Sunday, she was talking about the topic of mental health, and she was saying that so many people just kind of go with the periphery. So if you see somebody, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. And no, they're not fine. They're miserable, but nobody stops to check with each other to say, now, nope, let's see. You kind of look like you're not feeling fine. I don't know. I'm a little bit observant, but that look on your face isn't saying that you're fine, kind of a thing. So we'll go to the next slide. Oops, we lost.
Oh, hold on, sorry.
No problem.
Um,
While we're trying to get back to the slides, I can tell you one of the things that
oh
has
gosh.
been frustrating has been being bombarded with all these images 24/7. Whether you're looking at the news, whether you're looking at your cell phone and social media and all that sort of stuff, it all just goes crazy. And one of the things that I have done to help myself is I reduce the amount of time that I watch the news. We're going to go about 4 or 5 slides up through that.
Yeah, we were here, right?
No, that's the beginning.
Yeah, no, okay. You don't see the screen I see. Hold on. Let me do it this way.
Click,
Oh,
click,
my
click.
You know what happened? I don't know what I click. Apparently I closed it. So
One more.
yeah, right?
One more. There we go. Okay. Think one be up. We went one too fast. There we go. Okay.
Right here. Yes, that's what I thought. Okay.
Right. Okay. So for me, in order to decrease feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, I basically said, I'm going to limit myself to an hour of news a day. And I try not to do it at the end of the day so that I'm all worked up and can't get to sleep, because you'll find that sleep is absolutely critical to self-care. But I know that all of these stresses have produced trauma in each and every one of us. So if you look at this list, could you just type in the chat, whether it's C for hypervigilance, you're kind of waiting for the next thing to fall. You find that you're not able to be as creative as you used to be. Sometimes we minimize situations that we shouldn't. And then, of course, chronic exhaustion and physical ailments. That was something that I was honestly going through a lot my last couple of years at the city, because I was just running myself ragged. It was like, okay, I want to, provide these services and everybody's not doing it. And, if I don't, nobody does it, right? So I honestly did not believe chronic exhaustion and physical. Honestly, I did not believe that I was as stressed as I was until I got out of it, to be perfectly honest. When I got out of it, it took me probably about a month for my body to just like come down from the stress high, which was not a good stress high, but to come down from it. And I felt that I was finally starting to be able to figure out how to take care of me. So thank you guys for sharing. That's great. Not great that you're feeling that way, but it's great that you shared. We'll go to the next slide. So same thing. How are you personally feeling about some of these symptoms? Are you anxious, depressed? All of these are things that everybody goes through. So there's nothing to be ashamed of by feeling that feeling. And just like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about being able to state the feeling so that we can then figure out how to strategize around that feeling. It's very, very important. And it's not unusual for all of these things to happen in waves, to be perfectly honest. It could be like, I know my daughter is getting ready to graduate from college at UC Santa Cruz, and she's going to have a different kind of a graduation ceremony. And so here it's been 8 years, I'm sorry, 8 years of her getting her PhD. And the ceremony is going to be different than what we had envisioned 8 years ago. But, you know, we're talking about it now, we're planning a party and all that sort of stuff. So you have to figure out how to balance it. But yeah, it was pretty frustrating and that sort of stuff. Next slide. So when you've had all this trauma, here's what happens. We go into the fight and flight and freeze mode. Our brain goes into survival mode. It is so hyper in terms of what's going on, what's the next thing that I have to look for, and it's so constant that it keeps our stress levels at a high, and it releases adrenaline and cortisol, which is not healthy for the body, to be perfectly honest. So what we have to be able to do is to calm ourselves with these self-care mechanisms. So if we click again, there's going to be a section that comes on the screen at the bottom here. Just click. There we go. So when we were talking about some of those things that we feel in terms of maybe loss of concentration or mental fatigue, and then it interferes with our sleep and emotions, and we're ready to jump on whoever made the last statement, to be perfectly honest. And the statement wasn't that big a deal, but you know, it's one of those things that frustrates people. Then you know that you are in survival mode, and you know at that point that you've got to start implementing some of these activities in order to help yourself. So I'm gonna show you, we don't have it in the paper, but this is what we call a feelings wheel. I put it in as a handout, so you guys will be able to get the handout with all the details. But it sort of goes from the center where it's just basic, happy, sad, angry. And then as it goes out, it gets more in depth in order for you to see what it is that you're feeling. Oh, you were able to pull it up. Thank you.
Yep, I have it open,
That
except
is
this is
great.
huge now.
So let's take for an example, if someone were feeling angry, it may be just saying that somebody's angry. That's frustrating because, well, what are you angry about? Or you shouldn't be angry because all these great things are happening in your life. And the reality is that person doesn't feel all those great things. But it could be that they feel let down, they feel humiliated, they're resentful, or they were betrayed by someone. So by using this wheel, I have found that with clients, they're able to start putting the words about what their feelings are, so that again, you can say, oh, let me tell you how that impacted me. I feel betrayed. Not you betrayed me. I feel betrayed because some information about me got out, and the only person that I told was you. So that gives that person the ability to talk about it, to express themselves, but not to turn it into a conflict situation where, you know, oh my God, you telling me that I betrayed you, and now we're going back to the fight or flight words. The opposite word in terms of happy. I mean, I'm going through just as much challenge with my daughter's graduation, because I see her staying up till 5 o'clock in the morning. It's like, oh my God, will she be able to make it? I know she will, and I'm happy and very proud of her. And I know that she's going to do well, but I'm also a little bit afraid that, you know, I don't want something where something comes up and then she's not able to make her deadline, but I know she will. So it just gives you an idea of what are some of those words. How do I put a feeling to the word so that I can then start to tame it. So we'll go to the regular slide set and go to the next slide.
Oops.
So I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie, what was it? This one was about the feelings. It was so cute. So the girl in the middle is Joy with the blue hair. The one in the blue is sadness. Of course, red is anger, green is envy, and red was fear. Or yeah, I think he was fear. But again, according to Dr. Daniel Siegel, who is a well-renowned psychologist, by naming our emotions, we jumpstart the thinking part of our brain, which calms down our limbic system. So remember in that picture, there was the brain, and then there was a little amygdala, which is the sort of guard dog for our brains. And if we can name it, then we can figure out how to solve it. Give you an example. We are having a program at our church that is called Reinventing the Village. And what we're doing is we are taking people who are intergenerational and we're mapping them with young people. So the cool thing about that is I have been partnered with a 14-year-old. That's been a long time since my daughter's been 14. So I'm learning things and going through stuff. Last weekend we went to a miniature golf. She had never been miniature golfing, so she was excited. But then she started to get upset because as we were going through the different, I guess, what do they call them? The different places where we were golfing, the holes. So hole number 17, there was a person and two kids that came onto our hole out of line. So she was starting to really lose it. And I had to help her understand that, it's really not that big a deal. You can lose it, and then you can take this wonderful time we're having together and you can basically destroy it because you were upset about that, or you can just let them go. It's not a big deal. So I think she got the picture, but you never know. So now we're going to go to our first video clip, number 1. See how that goes.
Staying healthy and well. And then finally,
Finding
finding a sense of play in your life. In the middle of a global pandemic where so many people are suffering.
Video.
Hold on, stay with me, please.
Sure.
I realize.
Today we're going to be.
Oh, 1 second.
I think you have to get out of the presentation.
No, I have to bring it over. That's all.
Okay, there you go.
I wanted to make it a full screen before I bring it over, but that didn't work. Okay.
We're talking about showing up for yourself. So when there's a lot going on in our lives, in the world, when it feels as though there's just no more space in our mind, it's really tempting to let go of the things that are most important to us and the things that are going to keep us healthy and well. And now more than ever, it's really important that we focus on those things that are going to keep us healthy and well. So as much as possible, if you can, find a time to meditate. Find a time to step out of the thinking mind, to rest the thinking mind and just be present. Make sure you're taking time to exercise if you can. Most of the gyms are closed down. It might mean going out for a walk, it might mean going out for a run, it might be doing something at home. But whatever it is, make sure that your body's getting some kind of physical movement. Make sure you're getting enough sleep. Sleep is so important. It's important to our immune system. It's important to our cognition. If you don't get enough rest, then you're going to compromise all kind of different aspects of your health. Right now, eating's going to be difficult for all of us, and we may not get everything that we want. But continuing to eat as healthily as you can is going to be a really important part. as staying healthy and well. And then finally, finding a sense of play in your life. In the middle of a global pandemic where so many people are suffering, and maybe people really, really close to you are suffering as well, play and a sense of joy can feel so far removed and perhaps even unnecessary in our life. But if we can find even a couple of moments in the day where we smile, maybe even laugh, find something that brings us a sense of joy, that has a very real impact, not just on our mind, but also on our body. So just making sure that you're looking after yourself. Remember, it's not selfish, it's not just for you, it also benefits the people around you as well.
All right. So what kinds of things do you guys do to have fun? And I don't have a question other than you can either, I'd like to kind of open it up. I guess we have 15 participants, so we can let people respond in person. Play tennis, camping. Okay, I like that.
Lynn, when you say in person, you mean speaking?
Yeah, they can speak over the lines.
Okay.
Cook for friends, playing online games. I like the telling jokes.
Well, I'd like to share one thing that I've been doing. I'm an artist and so's my sister. She lives out of state. And we've had these art challenges on Zoom. And where we just pick a word and we create to it, but with a deadline that's
Mhm.
not too stressful. Might be a couple of months, it might be a couple of weeks, and then surprise each other in what the end result is. So we've been having a lot of fun with that.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's way cool. Anybody else?
Yeah, my family, when we were in, lockdown and kind of not in a mental health crisis, we were doing cooking nights together. So we would pick a meal and somebody would be the head chef and someone else would be the sous chef and
Mhm.
we'd have the cleanup person and we'd play games or do puzzles.
Very nice. That's great. You know, we've gotten so far away from things that we used to do that you actually have to collectively do it together, as opposed to you can use your thumbs and fingers to do something, social media or that sort of stuff. And so I'm sure there was a lot of laughter and joy during the time that you were together. It has to be. Although the person who was washing dishes might not have appreciated it. Some things you draw the wrong stick, but as long as it goes, as long as you make sure that everybody gets that chore sometime, that's great. That's wonderful.
Yep.
Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about self-control and walking, hiking. Thank you. Self-care strategies in terms of knowing what you can control and what you cannot control. Those are two huge items that will make all the difference in the world, because we can't control the fact that there's a war going on. We can't control the fact that right now climate change is going absolutely crazy. We can control, if you're ready to buy a new car, you can get a hybrid or you can get an electric car so that you contribute to that. Or maybe you get yourself, I actually have started tracking my sleep now. So I can control when I go to bed, I can control how long I stay asleep, and those kinds of things. So the next one is, here's some things that also can happen. I know people have some feelings about the CDC right now in terms of on again, off again, masks, not masks, and all that sort of stuff. But you can control whether or not you want to take their recommendations, even though in certain areas masks are not being used anymore. I know when I go out, I still use a mask. So that's just me. And I feel safer and I feel like I'm contributing to other people. And I also do social distancing. But I think the other thing that we sometimes forget is to limit the use of social media. And I know that's hard because it seems like everything that you need is on social media. And they deliberately do that so that you will stay and they can basically get more time that they can then sell to advertisers. That's how social media works now. It's not the nice, oh, well, you can just go out there and find what you want. No, they're taking every one of your keystrokes. That's another discussion, but I gotta tell you, the privacy and all that sort of stuff is real, that they do track everything that we are putting into our computers and our phones. So please make sure that you can limit that and also not end up going down the wrong rabbit hole, right? You have to be aware that if something doesn't seem to make sense, then you verify it. And especially with adult children, you might want to have them check and learn how to be good digital citizens, because so much is disinformation that they could easily be swayed to do certain things that are not to their benefit. But the thing that I like most now is giving grace to other people and showing patience, kind of like I did with my little mentee, is that everything doesn't have to be immediate. You can give grace to people who you may think it's doing you wrong, but there may be a different reason for it. And the biggest reason is I'm not going to allow myself to get upset and frustrated and have my blood pressure go up over something that's so trivial that it's, 4 minutes of somebody else playing a golf hole and then we go next. Next slide, I'm sorry. So we're going to click through this slide. There's just a bunch of different exercises. So if you just click on the slide, the words will come up, keep on clicking. So breathing, they talked about breathing being very important. I've given you some breathing exercises and meditations that I'll be sending out that you can try on your own. Or how many of you know about calm.com? Calm like CALM. Have you ever heard of that one? Put your hand up if you have, so I can hand up.
I unmuted myself and I wanted to say, not only we heard it, a lot of big corporations try to tell their employees to use it. We've been told about it through work as well.
Okay, that's great. And if you're a Kaiser member, it's my understanding you can get it free. So I would highly recommend that you do that and take advantage of it and listen to some of the meditations and then be able to do your own, write your own meditations ultimately. Okay, so we won't do the triangle breaths, but we have, we'll go to the next slide.
What is measuring tape?
It's kind of like you decide, it's kind of like you want to try to extend the breath and like you would a measuring tape.
Oh, okay, it's part of the whole breathing thing.
It's,
right?
yeah, it's part of the breathing. And blowing bubbles, we're going to do a little exercise on that at the very end. So we'll go to the next slide.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I love this slide because it's very positive and it's got lots of things that you can think about doing. that maybe you haven't done in the past. So for people who love nature, get out, start walking, do everything you possibly can. I love the ocean, so I find if I go over to Half Moon Bay and sit and listen to the waves coming in, it recharges me. So that's one thing. Spirituality, knowing that there's something greater than you. There's a lot of research that shows music, drumming, art, all those things really help people get into a different state of mind. I can't say enough about relationships. And the thing that I've learned over this COVID time is that relationships are absolutely critical. When we first started doing Zoom and everybody was like, oh my God, all our kids are on Zoom forever and it's horrible. And it's like, no, actually, we turned that around in our family. We did Zoom family meetings and we got to talk on a twice a month basis to more family members than we ever had before COVID. And so it built relationships as opposed to getting rid of relationships. And if there's people that you haven't talked to that you feel are still important in your life, I would highly recommend that you reach out to them. They're probably just as excited to hear from you as you would be from them. Don't wait and try to make them be the person who does everything. And for those of you who love animals, volunteer at a shelter if you don't have your own animal. I don't have my own animal. We have fish, so I can't exactly have the fish give me a nice warm snuggle. But there's other animals that you could still have a relationship with. And creativity, as Marsha talked about with her art, and anybody who's done crafts and that sort of stuff, it's a great way to release the stress, to do what makes you happy, which is 90% of self-care. That's what you got to do. And you will meet new people and be able to do some other things. So we're going to go to our next video clip. That's going to be video clip 2.
I think self-care is, I guess it's different for each person.
I see self-care as like a battery recharge. It's knowing if I'm stressed out, I lose my appetite of eating or I eat too much chocolate. So I know that I need to take a break and just relax for a couple of minutes and then get back into it a little bit more.
So self-care is about, looking after your mental health.
It means a lot of things depending on what I'm doing and depending on the situation.
Making sure that you're okay physically and mentally.
To me, self-care is just making sure that my physical and my mental health are always priority, number one.
It's the things that you do that help you be able to face challenges.
Self-care is basically taking some time out to look after yourself and make sure you're feeling re-energized and feeling okay to continue doing your daily routine.
Self-care is looking after yourself and loving yourself.
No, keep going. I'm sorry. Go ahead and play it. I was just checking our time.
To be able to help others, you have to be able to help yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup. I used to not do any self-care whatsoever, and it was rough.
Because it's important to look after your mental and physical well-being.
It's important, I guess it's really critical sometimes to just take some time away.
Self-care is important because it's really easy to burn out. When you burn out, you get stressed.
Self-care is very important. It helps you continue, it helps you improve, it motivates you to make better decisions.
It's good to just take a time out and do what you need to do so that you can feel yourself and feel okay.
Self-care is important because it's important to take care of your well-being and be able to recharge your energy so that you can continue doing things that you enjoy.
It's just really important to sit back and reflect and think about what you need to get through every day.
Because it's really important for like managing anxiety, but also your mood. But
it helps us to be resilient when life's challenges come.
So it's important to stay on top of things and look after yourself in the long term.
So, you know, it's really important to figure out what works for you and then use that in your life as your self-care strategies.
Things that I enjoy, so that is either hanging out with my 2 cats, hanging out with horses, because I love horses, they're my favourite.
When I can, I go for walks, I exercise, I go out with friends, and I try and find time to relax and just do nothing.
So I like to make sure I exercise, even though it's really hard to do that initially. It's really important for my mind and my body.
the things I do for self-care at the moment, I'm trying to learn to surf.
I get asked this one a lot and it's really tough because for me it constantly changes.
Petting my cat, it can mean knitting.
Kind of not paying attention to all the stresses in my life, just relaxing and enjoying each moment as I live it.
The things I do for self-care is I really like to check in with friends and family, really love to, I love to laugh, so I just like to connect.
Definitely reaching out when I need to, which sounds obvious, but sometimes we don't do it as much as we should.
I exercise, I pat my dogs, connect with family.
I bake cakes and I journal.
I like to make sure I get good sleep, good Z's. It's really important to make sure that you're rested and really important for your brain.
Probably gaming and playing with my pets and just having a chill day with friends.
Sometimes just coming home and playing with my dog Sherlock, who is the cutest thing ever, is what works for me.
Looking at cat videos, really important.
Being social with other people is a big one for me. Just visiting family or friends and just hanging out, catching up.
And then I also like to make sure I journal. So when life gets tough or I need to reflect on things, I just make sure I write down all my thoughts so then I can release it, or I can sort of talk to a friend about whatever's going on in my mind.
Love to garden as well. Do a lot of painting to really distract myself as well. Just got nowhere to hang them.
All right. Well, I'm not a cat person, but it seemed like a lot of people were in that video. So if you get any of you have cats, you can definitely use your cat as a self-care opportunity. So what I did here is trying to give you guys an understanding from a parenting perspective. I know that many of you have adult children, but this still applies. Spend time away from your kids to reboot, and don't feel bad about it. And the fact that it takes a village to raise a child. I know when my daughter was growing up, I had everybody that I trusted become an aunt, an uncle, you know, somebody who could talk with her about issues. I would talk with them first most of the time. So they were going to be saying the same thing as I was. But it's important that if you utilize other people, that you're comfortable asking for help and not feel guilty about it, because we all need help. Also, taking a vacation doesn't mean that you're going to Europe. You can take a camping vacation, as a couple of people have talked about. Go on a date or a friend night to kind of get some of those fun things again. Some of the, comedy clubs are actually having comedians, and they did during COVID, they actually had comedians outdoors. And so you could be there. I think Tommy T's, the one that's here locally, does a lot of that. So you could find somebody that you wanted to go see and not necessarily be stuck in the club-like atmosphere. Eating healthy, and again, breathing, and being grateful for our blessings. I think sometimes we forget, we're so focused on the negative that we forget that even the smallest thing, like the fact that I can actually walk to the end of the cul-de-sac is a blessing. There are people who can't. So putting ourselves in a different perspective. Okay, we are going to do a concentration exercise, and it's kind of like breathing. You might want to get yourself comfortable, and when at the end of this clip, I'd like to hear how you think about it, because what it does, and it might be something that you can use with with adult children or young people, is that it will in fact focus your attention. Because when we're trying to be mindful, most of the time all these thoughts keep coming in our minds, right? So it's hard for us to focus for a long period of time. Okay.
So Lynn, did you want the TED Talk or the bubble?
The bubble.
Curious. Bubble, that's what I heard you say, but number 3 for me was, okay. So stay with me. This is a cool one.
Mindful looking. This activity will enhance your observation skills and make you better at focusing. These are great skills for artists and will help you to focus in class. You need to sit comfortably facing the screen. You can sit in your chair or on the carpet, whichever your teacher prefers. The screen is gradually going to fill with bubbles of all different types. Some of them will be big, some small, some will be orange, some blue, some may be multicolored. I want you to look at the yellow bubble. Only the yellow bubble. Follow it wherever it goes with your eyes. Don't be tempted to look at any other bubble. Stay with the yellow one. Pay close attention to it. Now look at the blue bubble. Follow it closely. Keep looking. Some of them might start to pop to try and distract you, but don't let them. Now switch to the green one. Pay attention to it. This means only think about this one thing. Keep track of it, even if it goes behind another bubble. Now look for the smallest bubble. Your eyes will have to scan over the whole screen to spot it. Don't shout out which one it is. Stay silent. Now pay attention to the fastest bubble. Well done. Now you've exercised your focusing skills, you can put these into practice in your lessons.
All right. What do you guys think of that? You can unmute and speak up.
That was cool. I had a hard time focusing at first, but once it changed, then I got into it more and I was able to just not focus on anything else. There was some bad feedback noise in the background though. I don't know if anybody else.
Yeah, I heard that. It was a little weird. It wasn't that way but I have put in your handouts a copy, Excel sheet that has the video clips, so you can play it yourself.
Great.
And use it in the future.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I
felt
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Marcia, go ahead.
I just simply said I feel like I almost went to sleep.
Well, it focuses you. Others?
I thought it was longer than it was, and it is really refreshing afterwards because I have so much going on all the time. I feel like I'm so hyper. It just calms me down. And first I thought I didn't have time, but afterwards it felt like it was longer. I took a long break.
Mm-hmm. When our brains are focused, which is what they're supposed to be, by the way, we are much more effective. There is research, and I know I am guilty of this as well, and I'm working on this as part of my self-care. Multitasking is a fallacy. What we do when we multitask is that we start and stop all these things, and it ends up taking longer for us to complete them. So a lot of times, especially with teenagers, they'll say, you know, oh, well, I'm still doing my homework, but I've got my cell phone on and I'm texting and I'm doing this and I'm monitoring that. And there's been research that proves that our brain is not set up to do that. Our brain is set up to do one thing at a time. So learning to focus and learning to push out some of the thoughts that are constantly bombarding like those bubbles is very important in terms of the ability for us to do self-care. So
I appreciate so much this reminder, this kind reminder, because I come from a background where I have a lot of siblings, and growing up in a large family with many children, my siblings became my constant companions, but also my internal noise, my external noise. But and then through life is a challenge for me to stay focused. For example, in school, and so at this age of mine, I'm now 41. I had gone back to school, and I said I got to do this for myself, and I'm so grateful again, this reminder, this friendly reminder, and a good reminder, profound reminder that just remain focused. And indeed, I'm doing that. I'm practicing that. Continue to do so for myself, so I can.
Awesome. That's wonderful. So proud of you. Thank you.
I like the bubble exercise and, you know, was able to focus on it, but my son has a lot of problem focusing, and I think I'm going to see if he will use it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun exercise. And what I started realizing is that even honestly, when I'm trying to pray, that other thoughts come in that distract me. And so it's so important to learn how to do this, to learn how to focus and to push this other stuff out. So.
Okay, great.
It's a
The
good one.
only way I was able to focus is I've started breathing exercises, and I read and heard some places with the breathing. If you can't bring your thoughts together, just focus on your breathing, just take all your thoughts and feel and go inside, in and out with the breath. And that actually really helped me. Just whether you can close your eyes or open your eyes or look at whatever. So visual went away for me. It was just following my breath. That really helped me.
Excellent. So
I really liked the simplicity of the exercise. And what it reminded me of is that self-care strategies are the simple things in life. That you don't have to, you think maybe you have to do something different or extraordinary, but you don't. You just the basic simple things, and the exercise was a very basic simple exercise, and that's what I really liked about it.
Thanks, Colin. I appreciate that. Okay, so now we're almost on the end strokes here. So tiny survival guide. Remember I talked to you about trying to come up with a survival guide, things that you can do for yourself. This was an example, and you might look at some of those things and put them in your own self-care plan, which will be kind of next. We have a blank self-care plan that you could do. And you may want to take some of these topics and put them into your self-care plan. So we'll go to the next slide. So we put this together. I worked with the, let's see, I think she was the manager of Alameda County Center for Health, Schools, and Communities for Tri-Valley. And they put together a presentation, so I've taken some bits and pieces out of that. And this self-care plan I thought was great, because some of the things that you can do to take care of yourself, how do you, what do you hope to do in the future, and what do you have to ask other people to help you with. So we'll flip to the next one, because that'll give some examples, but this is so that you can do your own self-care plan in the future. So one simple thing, you could take a bath, a walk. I actually had adjusted that, attend a protest. I mean, for some people that is important, or watch a movie. Sometimes you need some private time in the home. So maybe you would ask your family members for an hour 3 times a week to do a workout class or to do an exercise class. I started doing chair yoga. Oh my God, that's more strenuous than running. You've never seen as much activity as chair yoga. But you could also say you're going to exercise certain days. And then the important thing is, who are you going to be your accountability partner? Who are you going to check in and say, I'm doing good, or I need some help? What's the name of that person, so that you can actually make this a reality? So now we're going to go into the next slide, which is talking a little bit about resilience. And then we're going to talk about gratitude and then resources. So in terms of resilience, the definition is an ability to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change. And believe you me, we've all done it in the past 2 years, and we will have to continue to do it in the next 10 years, I am sure, because there will be things that are happening around the country, whether it's climate change or another, that we will have to adjust to. But I love the idea of be like a bamboo, bend but don't break. Be flexible, be able to move with these changes, but don't allow yourself to break. And if you do the self-care, you should be fine. You should not be able to have that happen to you. So we're going to go back to the next slide, which is self-care tips. Remember to do things you enjoy doing, taking care of yourself. And here's the 2 things that I get out of this list. Make it a priority and make it a habit. Make it a priority and make it a habit. Even that small thing, such as the bubbles or concentrating or doing something as simple as walking the block, make it a habit. And you'd be surprised how better you feel. Now we're going to talk about a gratitude journal. This is the next one. Because I find that if we are grateful, we don't have as much time in our brain to focus in on all the negative stuff. So I would rather that we focus in on the positive things. And I actually found these inputs in a 7-day journal. So that's why I had to change the colors so you could see them and flip. So the first one good thing that happened to me today, something good I saw somebody do, and today I had fun win. So if you have your own journal, or if you want to make up a quadrant or 7 days a week and then fill those in, I think you'd be surprised how great you would feel afterwards. Because you can go back and see where you came from, maybe depression or anger, and then you can start to see how your brain has changed and moved in a different direction. Next one is going to be resources. We're going to flip 2 slides. Okay, so on the resources side, there are counselors on Facebook Live that will do video chats with people. There's 211, which is a resource. It's like calling 911, but it's a resource for agencies and institutions, as you guys know. And I think NAMI's in that. Alameda County Healthcare Services, the Calm app, and then there's one for Indigenous people of color and the Black community, which is called Liberate, which is another one that I gave you. The next slide, there are numerous articles and books. The one thing about social media is you can go and just put in the Google search, anything that is related to self-care or mindfulness, and you will have zillions of things to go through. I tried to hone this down to a few, but then there are applications that you can put on your phone or applications that you can download onto your computer that you can also do some of these exercises. You can just Google self-care exercises and you'll find YouTube video clips and that sort of thing. One thing that I did is I bought a little sound machine. It's about this big, and it plays like 10 different sounds. So it's got the ocean, it's got the rain, it's got all those sorts of things. And it was, like $20. And so I can turn that on sometimes and transport myself to someplace else so that I can go through a self-care exercise. YouTube clips, they're all over the place, and I will be sending to Romy another list of, I've got some breathing meditations. I've got 6 ways to practice grounding. I've got some articles. One is called How Mindfulness Can Help During COVID. I just couldn't get them all in before now, but I will send those tomorrow. And there's another one about parenting. Let's see, what is that? Self-care in the time of coronavirus for parents, prioritizing your own well-being benefits your whole family. So those articles will be available to you all on the website as well.
Thank you.
So now we're at the end. How am I doing time-wise before we go into questions? Any other
Very
questions?
good. It's
Okay.
8:05.
8:05. All right. So I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. Ta-da! Will you use any self-care techniques in the next couple of weeks?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. Now, next one is final thoughts. If you could share in one word or a short sentence what you got out of today, I would appreciate it. It would help us to know how to modify the presentation and all that sort of stuff. You can put I like that. Hey, Mark, I haven't seen you. Take charge, don't let life control you. Yes. That's my buddy. Yes.
I realized that I need to do a little bit more for myself, because I always think that I'm always thinking that I'm not doing enough for other people, but what about me? So I realized that.
We're very good. Thank you, Barbara. That's exactly right. And it just as Armne said in the beginning, put on your own oxygen mask first, right? They tell us that every time we fly. Can't help anybody. If you don't take care of yourself, the whole place falls apart, right? And again, don't be guilty about it. Just be like, yes, I deserve it. I deserve it.
It's hard.
I know.
I like to make jokes. We get together once a week now with extended family. And, we are all like to crack jokes, so yeah, I think it helps us, diffuse even frustrations that you feel.
Absolutely. Life is full of funny things if we take the time to agree, but it sucks when we just keep the pressure coming and coming and coming, and we're like, it's just really bad.
I always say that God has humor, because he made the hippopotamus, right? That's a kind of humorous animal. Got it.
I like it.
Well, this reminded me that I really need to put more of this into practice, because I don't do a lot of it. And although I did finally get away for the weekend with a friend, just short trip down to Santa Cruz area, which is like the first time in over 3 years, I'd say, that I've gone anywhere. So yeah, that was nice and refreshing.
And again, it doesn't have to be far. It can just be going to the local park and sitting and just breathing in the air for a little bit. Watching the kids bring you joy.
Yeah.
So that's great. All right. Well, I think for me, this is, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, or
I'm going to stop sharing so that we can all see each other and open up for a few minute discussion and questions. And if we don't have questions, we can definitely have Colin jump in, but let's see for the first few minutes, any questions.
Well, I think she gave us such good resources that we can, refer back to, that's very helpful. Yeah.
Thank you.
So
also I'd like to add to, I'm very grateful for this information. Also the resources that was provided to these sections tonight. I need at times we all need to be polished. For example, if we have a bookshelf that we don't polish or we don't
Dust.
yeah, it become dusty. Thank you. So I appreciate this section so very much. So there are a lot of valuable things. For example, exercise, sunlight, walk, good nutrition or diet, adequate amount of sleep. This I've been practice and self-care for myself, but there are other items. It's just a matter that I need to go back to the notes and then inculcate that into my everyday activities.
Yeah.
Yay.
I just wanted to bring up this chart here. You all saw it. I printed it. So I personally hit my bottom last year, and I'm trying to pull myself out of it. So I've been looking at some tools and techniques from breathing to when I found so one thing that I'm working on is really self-boundaries, okay? The little things I do, but I have to always remind myself to put myself on the map, basically. But I really like this chart. I first saw it and I laughed at it. I figured, we think like our loved ones need help. We forget that we need help too. And in some of the simplest things, and I was just, what I did is I picked a day in a happy, for example, right? It says happy, and then there is, hold on. And then there's a bunch of words that described it, 2 levels. Take one emotion, like, for example, playful, content, interested, proud, accepted, powerful, peaceful, trusting, optimistic. There's a lot of words. Take one and sit with it a day. Try to feel that in a day. It was really interesting. It's very interesting. So, and I never thought of it. We say happy and love and peace and these words thrown around without really diving in. So that's my 2 cents.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're all on a roll, and maybe if there is no other question, maybe we should have Colin jump in. Colin is the other expert that we have, luckily here. He's
right.
part of our extended family here with NAMI, and he lives right here in Dublin, from the original Dublin. And I'm really excited that how he was able to turn his life around and what he does for the community. So Colin, let me turn to you. You can say a little bit about yourself and tell us more. How can we help ourselves?
Thanks, Ramon. I'm not sure about the expert part, but I'll take it as a compliment.
Experience counts. Everything counts. You are the expert.
Well, you may notice. Good evening, everybody. You may notice from my accent that I'm obviously not American, but I'm from the real Dublin in Ireland, and I've been living in America for the past short time, 3 years. We moved over, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it here. I've lived with bipolar disorder more or less my whole life, and I've had my ups, I've had my downs, I've hit rock bottom. I've been fairly stable now for a while. It's a management basically process every day. And while I was living in Ireland, I worked for an organization exactly the same as NAMI, called Aware, who basically help people with depression, anxiety, stress, etc. So I did a lot of work for them. I did some media work for them, and I worked on their telephone support line in the evening, helping people. And what I found really to be the one thing that struck me more than anything else was people wanted just to talk to somebody. A lot of the people weren't looking for me to give them an answer or weren't looking for me to give them a solution. They just wanted to talk and get whatever they were feeling at that particular time off their chests. And even that alone made them feel so much better. That was almost like their self-care. I want to talk to somebody and get this out. And once they got it out, it almost like released something away from them. And they felt this huge relief. And they were thanking me so much at the end of the telephone call, and I basically did nothing. I was just there listening to them. So when I moved from America, I just wanted to continue on my advocacy, and that's how I got involved with NAMI. So I'm now involved with NAMI San Francisco, and I do in our own voice presentations, and I'm doing work for NAMI Alameda and Solano County as well. I'll be doing the End of Silence programs coming up soon too. But for me, my work in Ireland involved, I'm a personal trainer, but I also worked as a physical education teacher. But I specifically dealt with children with disabilities. That was children on the autism spectrum. And this is just what worked for me. As we've all alluded to, everybody has their own things that work. But I just found that movement and exercise played a huge part in these kids' lives. And I found that some of the autistic traits that they had were improved or lessened through the form of exercise and movement. It had like a calming effect. So children who had ADHD, it just calmed them down. A lot of them had like dyspraxia, dyslexia, global development disorder, numerous aspects on the autism spectrum, but the whole exercise just had that calming effect. And it led me to thinking, I very much enjoy exercise and running. So I said, this could become my therapy. And I turned to running as my personal therapy. And then I realized there's more than just running. People like to walk, they like to cycle, swim, whatever, take your dog. So it's not just running. So I changed it from running to actually being movement. And a very interesting thing happened to me a number of years ago when I was back home, and I ran in the Dublin Marathon a number of years ago. And when I finished, I was walking back to pick up my clothes, and there was a gentleman walking beside me, and he said to me, "How did you get on? Were you okay? Did you enjoy yourself?" And I said, "Well, actually, I'm a little bit disappointed. I was looking to get a specific time and I didn't get it." And he looked at me like I had two heads. He said, "You're disappointed, like you've just run a marathon. How on God's earth can you be disappointed?" He said, Did you take in the scenery when we ran through the park? Did you get involved with the crowds? The beautiful buildings that we passed by?" And I was like, sorry, I was looking at my watch all the time. But he gave me so much food for thought by making that comment. So anytime that I run now, I don't even go with a watch anymore. And I'm soaking everything in that's going on around me. Nature, the beauty of nature, the people that are out there, and I'm taking it all in. And it changed my whole perspective on using exercise as my form of therapy. And just to hit back on a point, everybody has their own ways of helping themselves. So on the occasions when I don't get to exercise, I fall back on my other two forms, which is I love reading and I love listening to music. So I will listen to music more than I will watch the TV. And it makes, that's my way of just giving myself that moment of calmness. It may only be for 5 or 10 minutes, but it really works. And just looking at the bubble video that you showed earlier, Lynn, something that I do that I'd like to share is that I sit down in a chair and I think about something in my life, a happy occasion. It could be like a family holiday that I went on many years ago, or it could be a time, that I enjoyed with my kids or my dog. And I think of that thought in my head. Both of my parents have passed away, so I like to think back on moments I shared with my parents. And for about 5 minutes, I fully immerse my mind in that thought. I block everything else out. And I just think of that. And unconsciously, I can feel myself beginning to smile. And I can, because I've thrown myself emotionally into thinking of that time, all of a sudden I can just feel my body changing and becoming happy. And as I said, unconsciously, I can feel my face just smiling. And it may only last for 5 minutes, and then I come out of it. And that's just my moment of, relaxing and calming myself down. But due to my love of exercise and movement, I in turn then decided that, I could really do something about this. So I set up what I call Fit Minds, which is, and I have a website, fit is spelled with a double T, FITTMINDS.org. And I like to use the phrase of movement through mental health. We're moving through mental health, and it can be anything. And on that website, I've put up advice, tips on how we can handle ourselves on a daily basis when we come into sticky situations. And this is all through what I've learned myself and through all my training with NAMI and back with Aware in Ireland. And then I have also got, I think if Armine would like to let me share my screen, I could possibly just put you onto the website, if that's possible. Maybe not, but anyway, if you visit the website, that's fine. You will find loads of advice, and I've tips on various different exercises, stretching, different forms of exercise you can do, and a list of information on mental health advice and resource articles as well. So feel free at any time, and my email address is there. If anybody wants to get in touch, you're more than welcome. But when you ask people what do they do to help with their mental health, you will find that the majority of people in some shape or form will say exercise, irrespective of what form that takes. And that's why I decided that there was really something I could do here to help people. So it's a resource tool that I try and refer people back to, that they can use in their daily lives. And I keep pushing it, and I keep promoting it. But again, it served me very well, because even though I've been managing myself very well for a number of years, I did relapse last Christmas due to the passing of my mother last August. And I went through a very bad period for 3 or 4 weeks. I didn't even want to be around, to be honest. But I found that my coping mechanisms of running, and I've taken up yoga, pulled me through. It got me through. And that was a great help. And for other people, like I said, it could be something simple like going for a walk with your friends, taking your dog for a walk, going hiking, whatever. We all share yoga, as Lynn alluded to, whatever takes your fancy. Even your general chores, doing the shopping, once you're up on your feet, walking around, that's exercise. Just moving the body. It's as simple as that. And I can tell from personal experience, it really does help, and it can put you in a better frame of mind, just by calming the mind, relaxing, and taking your focus away from the way that you're feeling. So in my training with Aware, they always said, they gave me this piece of advice that I've kept with me all the time. If you're during the course of your day, just going through a period in the day where you're not quite feeling yourself, just stop and ask yourself, what can I do right now at this specific moment to shift my mind from the way I'm feeling to a better place? And that may be, okay, I'm going to go for a cup of coffee. I'm going to pick up the phone and ring a friend. I'm going to go for a short 5-minute walk, whatever it may be, just to distract your mind from the way you're feeling, the poor feeling you're having, and taking it to somewhere else. Thanks, Armine. She's just actually shared my screen there, if anybody can see it. And I've got various parts on that screen.
Yep.
Mental health articles here. Why am I so down? How to overcome low self-esteem. Writing stuff down, your feelings, etc., etc. There's loads of lists there. You can take your time and go through them. This particular one here is what I call mind movement, which I mentioned earlier on, about using your mind for happy thoughts. So when I'm out running, I think of positive, happy things in my life. Okay. And not only does it make me feel good, it gets me through my exercise, because sometimes I know people find exercise difficult and they can find it a bit of a struggle to exercise. Oh, I don't want to exercise today. So by using this kind of thought process, you can get yourself through your exercise on a daily basis. But please feel free. I have articles on, if you do decide to take up walking, breathing techniques, the proper shoes to wear, all that type of stuff. So it's too long to go through it, but please, if you get a few moments, have a look at it. And if you have any questions you want to ask me, please feel free. And I'd only be too glad to help. But for me, movement and exercise was the key. And I promote it as much as I can. And what's so good about movement is it has a dual effect. Not only are we helping our minds, but we're also helping our body. So it has the mental and the physical effect. So you're getting the dual benefits, of both. And that's what's really key to moving. And pick whatever you like to do yourself and just go for it. Start small, you can increase it, after a couple of weeks, the more you do. But even if it's just a case of every day you decide you're going to walk around your local green once on your own with a friend, with a dog, it doesn't matter. While you're doing that walk, you can be practicing your breathing. You can be thinking of happy things, and believe you me, I can tell you from experience, it does work. It really does work. And if you have something on your mind, a family problem or something at work, just take those couple of minutes to get up, walk around, okay, calm yourself. And you'll be surprised how good you can feel, and you'll come back with a fresh mind, and you'll be able to look at your problem with a different viewpoint and get yourself through it. It's like everything in life, it does take practice, so stick with it. And you'll be surprised, I said, after a couple of days, even a week, of how better you will feel. But it's worked wonders for me. It really has. And just to touch back on one or two points that Lynn alluded to during the course of her presentation, don't be afraid to tell people how good you're feeling. My wife has become what I call my spotter. So maybe you might like to have a friend who you use as your spotter. And my wife will often say to me, she can sense my mood, and she'll say, Colin, you're not quite your normal self today. Is everything okay? Do you need some time out? So she's my spotter. So don't be afraid to use your partner or pick a friend and let them be your spotter. And don't be afraid to touch base and say, oh, you know what? I went for a walk today. I feel great. Be proud of what you've done. Don't hold it in. Be very proud. Everybody in life suffers or goes through some form of mental health. I won't say problems, but stresses. Some of us can overcome it and move on very quickly. Others, unfortunately, like myself, it doesn't go away. You know, I'll be bipolar till the day I pass away, but I'm actually very proud of my bipolar because it made me the person that I am today and made me a stronger person. And stronger person in the sense that I can now help people and use what I've been through to help others. And I use my form of movement and exercise because it's my number one tool of what I use. And I get the mental and the physical benefits out of it. So please, if you get a chance, have a look at the website. I'm around. You can phone, email, whatever. And I would just like to finish on this one. Armin and Marsha, you know, well, I've heard me say this. I use this quote at the end of any presentations that I give. And I heard it a number of months back on the TV, and it really, it blew me away. And it's very profound. All of us here have two lives to lead, but our second life only becomes apparent when we realize that we only have one. And for me, I'm on the second journey of my one life, and that's my journey of maintaining good mental health after all the troubles that I've been through in the past. And that is now my journey, is to maintain good mental health and self-care on a regular basis, which I do through my exercise. And when I'm not exercising, I have my other forms, music, reading, etc., my dog that I like to use. So thank you for listening. I hope maybe of some help. Please feel free to access my website, and I'm around if any of you have any questions that you might like to ask. So thanks very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Now I want to address this next question to Lynn. You mentioned that tomorrow we'd be able to track down the website that you had. Do you remember saying that?
No, I thought I said I was going to send these additional handouts.
Okay.
And then we'll have to put it on our NAMI Tri-Valley website.
Okay, great. Thank you for your clarification on that.
Yes.
We will share all the resources that we got from her so far and the ones we're going to get together along with the recording on our NAMI website, our Facebook pages, and it's going to be on YouTube, NAMI Tri-Valley channel.
Armine, can you share with everyone our next presentation in June?
Oh, that's a good point. I do have a flyer. I don't know what it is.
I have a question for Colin before we go.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hey, Colin, I also have bipolar, but mine, it's I think it's bipolar 2. I think is the one I think is more severe. Which one do you have?
Actually, Edwin, believe it or not, I really feel that I had bipolar 1 initially, and now I've moved to bipolar 2. Bipolar 1 is where your manic episodes, your mania, are much higher than your low moods. And for me, that mania, I found that more scary, because when I felt low, I would just retreat into myself, maybe go to my room, but I'd be safe within myself. But when I hit my mania, suicidal thoughts, taking $1,000 out of the bank and just spending it on nonsense, giving half my wardrobe of clothes away to homeless people, doing crazy things. And I found that more scary. Now, I'm more in control of that. So I would suffer just from having maybe a bad day where I feel a bit low. So I actually feel I've moved from 1 to 2. I wasn't sure if that was possible, but that's the way I feel. So definitely I started out as bipolar 1, but I would consider myself currently to be bipolar 2.
Okay, I'm just curious because, yeah, I mean, actually, I like the manias better than the lows, but I did spend a lot of money too, so
Yeah.
I do understand. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and it's good to see people who who recovered and try to make sense of the of this that doesn't make sense really.
Yes.
And just yeah, I am well aware, so we need to do some exercises, just to keep us from going back, so yeah, thank you for your presentation.
No problem.
Thank you, Colin, because I'm bipolar 1 as well.
Oh, okay. And just to promote NAMI, even though I'm managing well, I will still attend some of their peer support group meetings just to touch base and to talk, and let people know that I've had a good week or maybe I've had a bad week. So it's a constant managing process. It never goes away. If you're a reformed alcoholic or a reformed drug addict, you will still be that when you die. You just know how to manage yourself. And I will always have bipolar, but I can manage it better now. But I still like to touch base, and NAMI have support group meetings there. If you touch on the website that you can attend as well, and just talk. So they are extremely helpful too.
I have a quick question, and this is again very much to the topic. My son is 27 and he's bipolar, and he's going through that phase of, I'm not even sure he's 100% accepted it, right? So he's in that very early type 1, lots of manic episodes and up and down. So what advice do you give to those? I mean, some of you that have gone through it, what would you advise to the parent, to the gentleman? Is there anything I can do? Find him the people to hang out with? Like, he doesn't want to go to NA meetings and he's got dual diagnosis, right? It's very hard, that friction, the momentum at the beginning, to trust, to build the relationships. So I'm just curious if there's any resources out there that you recommend. Any one of you who's been through it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I know there are support. I know you said that he's not willing to go to meetings, but there are resources I know out there for young adults, or even if you could sit in on a young adult meeting yourself, or even we do tend to get sometimes the pressure that the carers are under, as opposed to the person going through it as well. So, you will need to know how you can handle your son. As a parent, at the moment, the best you can do is just to keep loving him and telling him that you're there to support him as much as is possible. It's a very tricky one, because you can't force them to go to a meeting. If you try and force them to go to a meeting, or maybe go to a doctor for medication, you could make the situation kind of worse. Just very small baby steps. Even if you just keep asking him how he is, or would he be interested maybe in going out for a walk with you, or going somewhere for a coffee or ice cream, or whatever the case may be. Just little baby steps first. And then maybe you could work on the bigger steps of possibly trying to attend a meeting. But I know there are resources out there for people, young adults, and for carers. So I think, and NAMI do, to the best of my knowledge, do have them as well.
There are different groups and organizations, and I think he would do well. There was a long time ago, I read there was like the male therapists who would run like male support groups somewhere, like people he can relate to, understand, and look at them the well, because he was hospitalized a long time. And I don't mean to bring this in. I'm just curious from your experience, but there are lots of programs and all, and I think we have to go through whatever until he clicks.
Yeah, because it was going to the first meeting that I went to in Ireland many years. That was the turning point for me, because then I realized that I actually wasn't alone, because I was living in my own little bubble, my bipolar bubble. And in my mind, nobody was worse than me. I was the worst person in the world. Nobody was suffering with bipolar worse than me. I was the worst. And yet when I went to these meetings, I thought, oh my God, there's people here who are going through the same as me, and people who are even worse off than me.
Yeah.
And that was my turning point when I finally realized that I wasn't alone. And it gave me the courage to talk. I think if you can just be gentle and keep just slowly showing out to what the possibility, I really feel that would be a huge benefit to him.
Thank you.
It takes patience and time, I'm afraid. That's the key elements. And in the meantime, you can just love him and try little things, walks, going out for a cup of coffee, and every so often drop in the idea of maybe trying to attend the meeting and see.
Well, I don't want to take over here just everybody's time. If anyone has more questions, I just want to chime in here with our next month's meeting. We do have Dr. Karen Trumbull coming in next month. That's going to be really, really great a meeting. So don't miss it. We will advertise. I can't find the flyer right now, but I know she's coming, and it's going to be June 7th.
Would you like me to elaborate quickly?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Dr. Karen Trumbull is the director of Alameda County Behavioral Health Care Services. And even if you have private insurance, it's, I think, very valuable to sit in on this and find out what the county's doing. And oftentimes, if there is a, I guess, evidence-based practices that are being utilized in the county, eventually the private sector will either adapt some, if not all, whatever that may be. So really encourage you to come listen to her while she updates us on what's going on in the county. Thank you. Thank you, Armine. And thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome.
Oh, yes.
My pleasure.
And Colin and everyone, right?
Yes, thank you all for attending.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. We appreciate all your sharing your wisdom. So thank you, and we'll send out the links. Bye-bye.
Be safe, everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good night.